Good afternoon, everyone. I'm back at it again. Seems like you just saw this car. This is the wife's 2013 Kia Sorento SX all-wheel drive 3.5 liter engine and has about 154,000 miles on it. You just saw this on a video I made where I changed out the spark plugs, and as part of the process I had to take the upper surge tank part of the intake manifold off to get to the rear ones. Got it all back together and ended up with a small issue. Now the thing is, I ran this thing for a good 15 minutes once I got it back together to see if there'd be any codes thrown. You know, maybe I left something disconnected, but it didn't. It wasn't until the next day when the, I should not mention names, just initials, the wife, got in the car, cranked it up, and the money light came on. So I ran the code, and of course there's multiple codes, but the central code was P as in Parker 200A, which is talking about the intake manifold performance. Now that can be several things I found out. There's a little VCM motor on the left, I'll show you that activates some flappers. This is 6-cylinder, so there are 6 flappers in this thing. You know, I got to thinking, did I leave a paper towel or something in one of the intake chambers? Oh, that'd be a disaster. Or is it the intake manifold itself? Is there an issue with that? Well, I determined it is an intake manifold issue, so I've had to dismantle this again, and I'll show you how I discovered the issue. Now right here, there's a little actuator arm, and the motor sits right here. And when you crank up this engine, now I've done some research, it seems to only do that when you crank up the engine. I don't know, some kind of vortex effect for better fuel performance. Then other people say, no, it works all the time. All I know is when my wife cranked it up, this thing would open the flappers, let me get the paper towels out, and then immediately close them. Well, the problem is there's 6, and you can see the little arm actuation here down at the bottom. Let me get some better light for you. You see that little arm right there? There we go. And it will actuate. Well, I'll try and throw that in the video because I did film that with my wife cranking up the engine. So let's see if I, oh, there we go. So, better. Center it. See? There and there, there and there. Well, you know, was that moving far enough? Because you have to do a relearn procedure on this once you're done. So I'm going to have to take it into somebody that has a scanner to do that. So, again, was it because it wasn't moving far enough? And I said, no, it's just my luck. It's going to be an issue with the manifold. So if you look in here, you're going to see a flapper. Now, if I get the flashlight in there just right, there we go. When I activate, turn on the motor, flapper up, close, open, close, open, close. All right, so there's number 1. Number 2, I have to get to the other side. Let me show you. If you look at the base here, there's another flapper. Now when I activate the arm, no movement. There's movement in 1 and 3, but no movement in 2. So what happens is 2, 4, and 6 are connected to 1, 3, and 5, but something is broken. There is a connector. I've done research. There's a connector between all of these. They should all move at the same time, and they don't. So that tells me it's a manifold issue. But I've even pushed that down, and it's stuck. It does not move. It does not recoil, whereas the others do. You see at the top of the screen there, there's number 3. So we've got to put in a new manifold. Now let me show you, there weren't that many more bolts to take apart once I had done the issue with the plenum. Whoops, let me get the light on. Kind of hard to find some place to stick a light nowadays, doesn't want to stick. So there's a little motor that sits right about here, and it actuates this. It has an electrical connector. 2 bolts to keep that in. All right, took those out. I then went over here so I can move my wiring harness back a little bit more than what I had, and you'll see, there we go. There was a bolt, like a 10 millimeter, that goes right there, That's so I can lift things up a little bit more. I disconnected a couple more disconnects, which are not hard to see. You'll see them. And I went ahead and depressurized the system because you're going to have to remove the injectors, at least down at the bottom. So there was some screws, or bolts I should say, more correctly bolts. Bolt there, bolt there, bolt there, bolt there. And then you start getting down, and I was able to pop this up, depressurize the system, took a little bit of leverage, a large screwdriver, popped it up. This is all held in by those 4 bolts. And there are some gaskets. I'm going to replace those gaskets. I'm going to replace the gaskets on the underside of the manifold. There's a set of gaskets for fuel injectors. Anytime you mess with a fuel injector, replace those things. Now, I'll have to get down in here, and you can see one bolt here. Oh, I'll have to disconnect. There's a sensor here too that I will disconnect over here when I pull this manifold, and I'll put that all back in once I get the manifold off. But if you look, there is a bolt right there. That'll come off, and then as you move over, there are some more bolts that are kind of hard to show at this point, but they're Allen head. There's down in there. So once I get the fuel injection apart, well, as a matter of fact, I've got it apart now. Let me show you. Bolt there. That holds the fuel rail down. Now make sure you put something in each of these chambers. You don't want to lose a bolt in there, or a screw, or a washer, or you're in a heap of trouble. All right, so what I did is I lifted this up. I just kind of push that away. Be careful. Those are fuel injectors. Okay. Then you'll see a bolt down there. And see, that's going to be an Allen head. I've forgotten the size at the moment. I'll let you know later. So I think there's 4 across. So there'll be bolt, 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 bolt. Some are nuts, and 2 are Allen head. Same on the back. Now, there's a particular sequence in which you have to take these apart, too. It's much like a head gasket. You know, a lot of times you take things apart outside in. When you do put it back on, inside out, and I have my Haynes manual. There is a sequence to doing this. Also, to be less messy, I guess because of the coolant chambers, they say to drain the coolant. So I've got to look at that, which is not such a bad thing for me because it's probably due to be changed anyway. Now comes the $64,000 question. Do I go back with OEM for about $280 if I get a discount from a dealership plus shipping? Or should I go with the quote-unquote improved version by Dorman, which is $185, $200 I think on Amazon? I think I'm going to take a chance and go with Dorman because it says that it is a improved design. Now, I'm not a big fan of Dorman electrical, but some of the aftermarket stuff for things like this might be pretty good. So I'm going to take a chance. Oh yeah, when you take everything apart, label your nuts and bolts and screws and whatever. A lot of times you can take a piece of cardboard, punch it in there, and do it that way. But this was just as easy. Some of that blue painter's tape and a Sharpie, and so now I have everything marked, so I know which bolts go where. I had to take a little break, and we've had some bad weather this week. 2 inches of rain over 2 different days, and you can probably hear it now, lots and lots of wind. So I'm now in the process of taking out all the bolts in this manifold, and it's kind of hard to show unless I take it out, and I will show you the bolt pattern. There are bolts, there's a couple of nuts, and a couple of the bolts are Allen head, metric Allen head. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Oh, I've got to tell you, there's also one more connection here. Over here, there is a sensor on this side. It's way down here, so I'm going to disconnect it over here and pull that up and remove that sensor once I get the manifold off. Now, when you follow that wire from that sensor, which is up here, it's going to be mounted on a post once you disconnect it. And it's really hard to see, but on this post here, between the wire and the post, down inside the plug, way down in there, is a little tab that you have to push. Now, I squirted some, let's see, WD-40? No, silicone in there. Took a pick and pushed that little tab like this, and then I pushed it down. And if you flip it over, you can, if I can get it to the light, you can see that little tab and a little circle right there, and the little circle that holds it in place right where my finger is. In all actuality, there is another connector I found, and it goes way down under here. So when it comes to removing this, you want to pry, but pry very carefully. Remember, it's plastic, and it's about 45 degrees today, so you don't want to break anything. So you have to find something solid to pry from. You don't want to be digging where the faces meet because you could gouge it. So I took the old Stanley Wonder tool there, and right about here was able to just gently pry it up. It came off fairly easily. Success. And that other sensor, never mind. It's way down here and attached to something else. I was incorrect. So here is the sensor that all has to do with that actuator, and that's what I unplugged. Now, remember what I said about, making sure that everything's plugged up? You don't want anything going down in there or there, and I'll have to clean that up before I put the new one on. And you pull it straight up. Why? Because there are, two of the nuts, they're posts, so you pull them straight up. And a word of caution, even though I was taking off very carefully, the nuts that is, and I had my magnet nearby, even though I was close, they still fell down in there. Dadgummit. So when you take those nuts off on either side, and I'll show you the pattern in a second, have a paper towel or something stuffed down in there, and you won't lose them. But that's it, and I've turned it this way. Now we're going to put it on the bench in a minute, but let me show you the pattern of the bolts and nuts. So here they are on the garage floor, and it seems that everything is the same size. So each one of the bolts was a 6mm Allen head. The bolts were a 12mm socket. This is toward the front of the car, that is toward the firewall. I didn't want to forget to put this in. This is the tightening sequence, and this is the front of the car, that's the firewall. So when you're removing, you reverse the sequence. So as a Honda mechanic once taught me, it's like doing a head gasket. You start at the outside and work in when you're removing, and you work from the inside to the outside when you're installing. So if you see, you can pause this. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sorry about the dog. But you can pause that and you can see. And they weren't that tight. Again, this is plastic, and Emily has to make a seal. So she's on the bench, and the sensor, a couple of T25s here. Now when you screw these back down, be very careful. You don't have to manhandle these. You don't want to break anything. Also, I made sure that all the flappers were closed. And I'll have to move this over to the new one, and I'll have to pop the armature handle here off and transfer it over to the new one, because the mechanism is built in, so that's already there. So let me gently pop this off. Good light on this one. Now if you notice, it's notched. So when you get up here, you want to make sure everything's the same. You can see right in there, get a good lighting on it, there's a notch in there. Moving over to the new one, there's a notch, there it is, in there. You want to make sure they're in the same position. These are off just a tiny bit, so I'll have to make an adjustment or two. So let's see, that was a little tougher to get those T25s in. Easy to get out, but that's new plastic, so I had to use a little bit of an impact. Be very, very careful. And I did get the armature popped off, so what I did there is I shot some WD-40 in there, and then I used my removal tool for body panels, and I was able to get up under there and you know, it exerts pressure on both sides because that's like a small steel ball, and popped it off. Put a little lubrication inside of here and on that ball, and on the inside here where the actuator meets the actual tab down in there. It had grease in it to begin with. I just add a little bit more, just plain grease. I used Valvoline European Japanese. Now don't forget, you still have two posts. There's one here and there's one here. Transpose those. I used a little thread locker blue. There is an external Torx head there. Nothing but a flat style bolt that you can't grab onto at the bottom. But here there's a little bit of a rounded area that you could needle nose pliers get to that. But I used a little thread locker blue. It was an E6 external Torx. I just happen to have an external Torx kit. It's an E6. Tighten it down firm. Again, that's copper and brass, all these connections, so be very, very careful. I'm going to call it a day. It's still windy, it's still cold, and I'm losing light. So I've put everything back on. I torqued everything down according to the tightening pattern, and the bolts are like 20 and a little change, so I did them at 20. The nuts are at about 14. It's all foot-pounds. And oh, by the way, the gaskets came with the actual unit itself, both sets. Well, now I think I can show you the broken piece. This seems to be a common problem, but again, 154,000 miles. So look at the tip of my screwdriver here, and I'll try and zoom in and get the light. There we go. So you see that little piece right there where the screwdriver is? That's what breaks. And therefore, 3 of the flappers do not move. You see how that plastic piece is a bit catawampus? That's it. And you see, like I say, the screwdriver is holding it in place. See if I can zoom in. That's what breaks. Plastic. A little more work today. I'm going to go ahead and put the O-rings on the fuel injectors, which I've already done. Now, let me tell you, they'll spring across the room. So what I did is I took the old ones off. I just used a simple, pick and took those off. You can see it's just a standard kind of O-ring. Now, to put them on, there's a couple ways you can do it. Well, first of all, I use some silicone to make them slide easier. And you can, with your fingers, of course I had these heating up in the house, slide that over here and push it on. That can be a bit of a struggle. So if you can find you something that's a little bit larger than the diameter of this, such as this, grease this up, slide it on this first, put that down, and slide it on. Much easier, especially on a cold day. So let me go ahead and reinstall the fuel injectors. I did put the 4 bolts back in. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. There's no specific torque, they just have to be firm. And yes, I did cover up my ports so I didn't drop a bolt or a nut or a screw in there. That would be a disaster. I'm going to do the electrical connections next, and then I've got 1 bolt over here, way over there, to secure that. Fuel rails are back on. Required a little bit of manipulation here and here. I got the one set in, then I had to turn just a little bit, turn it to the inside, turn it to the inside to get those to fit, press them down. Again, the 4 bolts. Then I have reconnected the back side here. You can look and see there's one of the connectors there. Let me get up close. Reconnected the connectors in the back. I'm going to wait for the ones in the front because that's that one piece that goes on before I put that surge tank or plenum in. So I just want to make sure that I've gotten my plugs in. Oh, I did go ahead and double check. See there's the handle. Let's see if you can, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see that. I went ahead and checked to make sure nothing was binding before I get too far. And all of the ports are moving. and nothing bound. Getting a wee bit darker, but you remember that 14mm bolt that goes back there? Way down in the back there, and you had to do it by feel. That created a fit. I had to again lift that right side, or the driver's side part of the plenum up to get everything straight. Put that in. Don't forget the 10mm behind the plenum back in here. And now I'm going to reconnect. Let's see, I need to really start doing the hoses and electrical connections. And don't forget the front side fuel injectors.
Derita. Stop. Okay. Hop. Don't move.